Okay, I think we can start.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to Dr. Maimunah and all the participants who have joined the meeting. My name is Muhammad Zulshahir bin Rahman, and I will be the MC for this workshop. Okay, so before we start, let us recite Kitab Al-Fatiha. Alright, so welcome to the final year project workshop. This workshop will be handled by our beloved lecturer, Dr. Maimunah, from the Department of English Literature and English Literature and Linguistics. Thank you, Doctor, for taking the time to hold this workshop. Alright. So before we move to our main agenda, just a few housekeeping rules and reminders. Yes, firstly, this session is currently being live streamed on YouTube. So for the students who are not able to join, you may join the link posted in the WhatsApp group, the YouTube link. And secondly, please mute your microphone to prevent any distractions. However, if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt Doctor at any time during her presentation. You may use the raise hand function or just simply unmute your microphone. Perhaps maybe if you at the end maybe we can ask a few more, like we can hold like a short Q&A session as well.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So okay, without further ado, I think we can start the session.
Okay, Shahir, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum, everybody. Before we start, I think Shahir will show the slides. But before that, I think I would like to answer the questions that were submitted by Friday night. We'll go through those first, and then I'll do my presentation. As you said, at any point you can interrupt me because I have combined FYP 1 and FYP 2. Last year, if Shahir remembers it, we had two separate FYP sessions or workshops. But I think we may not have time next semester. I'm anticipating a busy semester like last semester. We almost couldn't do it. So I have combined all the slides. So it will take slightly longer. But because there are more slides, I would rather that you ask me or rather stop me at any point to ask questions so that I don't get lost. You know, as I age, I tend to forget things. So need to stop me at any point. Okay. First, I will show you the what do you call that? Alamak.
You need me to share the document as well?
Do you have it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
I do.
you put it on.
Okay, sure.
I never know how to do that properly. I think we had like 10 questions, good questions. Can you enlarge that a little bit?
Okay, sure. Okay, I think it should be okay, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. The first question, we had some generic questions, a few literature questions, and one that cannot be categorized into anything, right? One. So let's see. The first question is, can we still change the topic when the semester starts? Now, in general, you can. You cannot, because you have agreed to work with that lecturer or supervisor based on the topic that you submitted in the proposal. But you can do some tweaking. In other words, you can change a little bit here and there. For instance, you might want to change the sample, or you might want to change the methodology. So you can do a little bit of tweaking or changes made to the original topic. Alternatively, you can discuss with your supervisor, right? So once you have decided who to work with and have been accepted by that person, you need to utilize that supervisor's expertise. Because if you suddenly change to a totally different topic that has nothing to do with that person, with the supervisor, that might be a bit difficult. But in general, most of the supervisors can do I would say almost everything, unless it's of the other division. You know, like I can't do literature. I don't know many of the theories involved in literature, but if you are working on something like a book a literature book or any book with looking at certain socio-linguistic concepts, then I can do that. Okay. Next question, what will happen if I can't find a supervisor before the semester starts? Will I be registered randomly or do I proceed to find one? Okay, you will be registered with any supervisor that is still available. All right. Last year, which was our first year of supervising FYPs, we had some lecturers who did not have the quota of 8 students per lecturer. Right, some lecturers had 9, some, most had 8, a few had only 5. So by the time the semester starts, I think there will still be space for people. Even if there is none, we will find somebody, even if that person has to take more than necessary. All right. Okay, next question. Can I do a research on any theory, including the ones taught in class? Technically, yes, but you need to talk to your supervisor. All right, that shouldn't be a problem. Number 4, is there any website where we can find examples of past year students FYP? Yeah, since last year is the first year and students have just received their final FYPs back, they need to do corrections, they need to make it all nice and presentable. I have asked for everybody to submit it to a shared Google Drive by the middle of September, right? But this will be ongoing. So inshallah, when the semester starts, you have something that you can look at. Okay. Okay. All right. Next question, Shahid. Will the supervisor guide us on how to do FYP in terms of content and format? Okay. Guide you? Yes, definitely. That is our job. All right, but the bulk of the work falls on your shoulders. In other words, because this is a final, all right, emphasis on the word final, that means it is everything that you have done for the last 4 years, 3 or 4 years. All right, so you know what you want to do. You decide on the topic. Once you have agreed with your supervisor, you proceed on doing the research. You proceed, in other words, you proceed on doing on finding the content, right, for all the chapters. I'll explain later what the chapters entail. And then the supervisor's job is to make sure that you are on the right track, that you have created the right research questions, for instance. Based on my experience, the first chapter, which is the introduction chapter, I had to look at 3 drafts until I was happy with the content. The first chapter is always the hardest because you need to know what exactly you are doing. All right. You need to know what is the problem, what are the research questions, how do you match those with the research objectives. So until that is clear, sometimes lecturers will make you work on that first chapter, draft after draft after draft. Right, but after that, once you know where you're going, chapter 2, 3, and then later 4 and 5 would be rather smooth sailing, I would say. All right, so the bulk of it is on you. You work on the content. We will provide the format, of course, how many chapters, pages, layout, and things like that. But basically, you do the content. Okay, what else did I see here? Okay. All right, for literature, I'm sorry that Dr. Homam cannot be here today. He is the new, or rather the next coordinator. I will have this job until the end of September. Then Dr. Homam will take place. So he is the literature person. Perhaps definitely he will know better about the content, but he couldn't be here this morning, but he will be able to help you. Now, in terms of literature, what is the format and technicality of literature FYP? Is it the same as linguistics? In terms of layout, it's almost the same, all right, 5 chapters. But you will see later that the chapters are named differently. As I understand it, the literature people do not have a methodology section. They go straight to analysis of two sets of data. In other words, 2 books perhaps, or 2 genres. So that you have to talk to your literature, your supervisor. But in terms of content, in terms of language, it's the same thing. All right, so what else did I say? We have the same introduction. The second chapter is on literature review and theoretical framework for the linguistic students. But for the literature, they have the theoretical framework in the title. So you see the content is the same, only the title is slightly different. We have methodology for chapter 3, but literature would have analysis 1 or book 1 or genre 1, whatever the title may be. And then chapter 4, linguistics people will have analysis of findings, and then literature will have analysis 2. And the final one is the same, conclusion, right? So in terms of titles, slight differences, but in terms of content, more or less, depending on the nature of your research. Now, obviously, for linguistics people, the scope is larger because you can have text as well as human samples. But for literature people, usually it is what do you call that? Text analysis. You're looking at books, or you're looking at the contents of movies, perhaps, or poems, or lyrics and whatnot. So it's slight differences in terms of sample, and therefore you will be analyzing them in different ways. Okay. All right. Next question. If we are doing FYP in literature, do we need to find participants for our FYP like linguistic students do? Not necessarily. Again, it depends on the nature of your research topic. All right. If it's a combination of areas, for instance, last semester, I had one student who looked at a dialect, how dialect is used, which is, as you know, sociolinguistics, in a literary text, a book with Terengganu, by a Terengganu writer. So he had some words in the Terengganu dialect. So she used both linguistics and literature. So I was able to work on that. And what she did was she interviewed secondary school students, right? But still using, of course, using words or the dialects from the storybook, all right? So here you have a combination of literature and linguistics. So she used human samples as well as content analysis. So as I said earlier, literature student may be using or analyzing text more than working with human participants, right? Yeah, your job would probably would involve analyzing or comparing texts or other genres like movies or poems. So most likely you won't need to do any surveys, right, or any experiments. Yours would mostly be, as I said, text analysis. Okay. Do we need to quantify our data for literature like linguistic does? No. All right. That's not, if that is not the major objective of your research, then you don't have to, right? What you need to worry first is, what is the problem? What are you going to look at, right? Once you have that problem, then you look at what is your objective, and therefore come up with the questions. So the questions may not involve quantitative data, no percentages, no means and frequencies, right? So that would be slightly different. Okay. Okay, the last question there, which is unrelated to linguistics or literature. May I know the reason why batch 171 onwards need to do FYP? Okay, tough luck, you were born to enter into the university at this time. So, you know, this came about because it became a graduation requirement. Now, obviously, things don't stay the same all our lives. So you find sometimes what happens is in every university, after 3 to 5 years, we have what we call a curriculum review. All right. So we had one, I think in your case, we had one in 2017. We had one this year, last month actually, but this will take place in 2 years' time. So what happened in 2017, the MQA people, the Malaysian Qualifications Agency, this is a Malaysian thing all over Malaysia. All universities, all institutions must liaise with these people, and they will send, or rather they will set up what we call, what is the name? Something along the term of auditing. All right, so our university has one, KCA. Can't remember what it stands for. So KCA will send out external auditors, and they will check that we are doing things accordingly. All right, so around that time, 2000, I can't remember, 2015 perhaps, the whole of Malaysia, MQA decided that all courses, especially that involve language programs, need to do some kind of project at the end of the students' 4-year program as a, what do you call it? A final year project. Now the final project that you see now takes shape as a thesis, right? But it's not just a thesis. In the future, we might, depending on the outcome, we might change it to perhaps a seminar or a presentation or whatnot. All right, so this FYP, which is coming into the 2nd year for you guys, is in the shape of a thesis, right? So this is not what we wanted to do. What we wanted, the Kuliah wanted to set only those who have reached a certain CGPA. I can't remember what, but obviously a high CGPA. Only those with a high CGPA deserves to do FYP. But then the MQA overruled that and said that everybody has to do it, and you fall into the 2nd batch for this department. So we have no say. Well, not technically no say, but we have to agree with what the MQA has suggested, because it's a good idea for you to know how to do research. It's not only something that students who do postgraduate program continue to do. You know, if you do your master's or you do your PhD, obviously you have to do research or a thesis or a dissertation. But nowadays, even companies would demand of you to do some kind of project. So if you don't know the basics, that would be dangerous. That would reflect badly on you and even your university. So you need to learn the basics of doing a very simple project, and it's only about 40 pages. Master's students have to do 130 pages. PhD have to do 240 onwards. So yours is really, you know, a very basic project. And actually, to me, it's even harder to write a shorter paper than it is to write a long paper. The one that I had, my students, the longest was 56 pages and the shortest was 33. So I'm happy with the length. So you should see this as a practice for future tasks. All right. Okay, Shahir, I think that's all for to answer these questions. Does anybody have any questions in general before we start the slides? Wan Anissa, where are you, Wan Anissa? Go ahead and ask me the question.
Doctor, I want to ask for our FYP,
Mm-hmm.
it will be graded by our own supervisor or other examiner?
Okay.
Or is it both?
Okay, for the FYP1, it would be graded by your supervisor. For FYP2, last semester we wanted to have other supervisors check other people's work. In other words, we exchange. But we didn't have time because the timing was bad. It clashed with the external auditing. So the supervisors ended up just checking their own students' work. All right. So the possibility of another lecturer checking your work is still there next year, but only for FYP2. FYP1 is just your own lecturer. Okay. Anything else? Okay, welcome. Anybody else with any other questions before we start?
Doctor.
Who is that?
Munira.
Munira, yes, go ahead,
Yes.
Munira.
Can I know if there's any expectation before the semester starts?
In what?
Because I mean the materials, or because we're supposed to like search for it
Mm.
and get ready for it before the semester start. But what happens? What about those who cannot confirm the
Okay.
topic or the supervisor?
Okay. I will explain in the slides later what you need to do between now and when the semester starts. But basically, obviously, you need to decide what you want to do. Before you decide on that, obviously, you need to read lots of reading, right? Or if it's not lots of reading, at least a couple of research papers that interest you. So you need to know what you want to do, because you decide. The lecturers will not decide for you as to what topic you need to do. Okay, so you decide and then you send it to your lecturer and then you get the agreement. Then before you start the semester, you would have at least know what you want to do. All right, if you have the time, you can even start writing now. All right, so then you won't be too busy in the semester. To be honest, I have my number of students already, and I've got what they want to do. All right, so that by I think the end of this week, I will tell them what they need to start writing on. All right, so you need to know now, even if you don't have a lecturer in mind yet, start reading, start setting that topic down properly. So the earlier you get your supervisor, the better it is, so that you know what else to look for. Okay, the reading materials are all on you. Your lecturer can suggest, but you know who your lecturers are. Some may be keen to help you in that sense. Some may want you to be more independent. So this is an independent work after all. So you have to look for your own reading materials. Some notes, some lecturers will give. For instance, you know, what is involved in statement of the problem, which is often a problem for people. What is theoretical framework? That is also a problem for many students, right? So we will give you notes, or we may have sessions or classes for those sort of things. But what is on you is, of course, first of all, get that topic out of the way. See what you want to do. Okay, Munira? All right. Any other questions? One Anissa? Yes, one.
Doctor, if we want to do our FYP, and let's say like I want to do social linguistic, but Dr Maimunah quotas is already full. So like, is it possible for me to do the FYP with other lecturer even if it's beyond their expertise?
There's not only one sociolinguistic person. Sociolinguistic is the easiest of the linguistics. Trust me, I'm not so bright. That's why I took sociolinguistics. But you have others. Dr. Adlina is sociolinguistics. Dr. Zura is also sociolinguistic. In fact, everybody can do sociolinguistics. No worries. All right. That's why I said go decide what you want to do first. Go get that lecturer. If that lecturer is full or cannot help you, she will tell you who to get to. Or if you ask me, I can tell you. In fact, at the end of the slides, I won't go over everything. I have a list of lecturers with their areas of interest. But if you say sociolinguistics, everybody in linguistics can do that. Sociolinguistics is easy. It's not a specialized area. We all had to study sociolinguistics in school, so we did that. All right, so that's no worry. But let's say if you come to me with something on phonetics, that's not my area. All right, that's the worst area for me. All right, so that one will be Dr. Zura. If you come to me with grammar, yes, definitely, I'm a grammar Nazi, so I will welcome that kind of topic. Dr. Maskana is grammar person as well. Both Dr. Adlina and Dr. Adlina and Ainul, also TESOL teachers. So the four of us are TESOL people, so grammar is definitely in our alley, right? So don't worry, there'll be somebody who will be able to work with you. All right? Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
No problem. Any more? Okay, Shaya, you might want to put up the slides.
All right, sure thing.
Okay. All right. Oh, wait, before we go on, can you guess, second slide, Shaya. Can you guess what language that is?
Greek, Latin.
No. Okay, we'll save time. It's Turkish. So you can see that this is all Turkish, obviously. All right. So we can see that language can be anywhere, can be anything, can involve all genres. But I just want to remind you before we start that this is linguistics, English, language, linguistics, and literature. So when you start thinking about your topic, you must have that English bit in there, right? You cannot, for instance, look at a dialect, although that's sociolinguistics, but you want to compare Kelantanese and Terengganu dialect. No, right? You must have an English bit in your research. Okay, next slide. All right, so what is a final year project? It's a research-based work. In other words, if it's research-based, there are no classes. Unless you wish to have that, you can negotiate with your supervisors. But we are not forced to have classes with you. It's not considered a credit hour for us. Credit hours for you, but for the teachers, no. This is extra work for us. So it is based on your 4 years as an undergraduate student, assumes a minimum of 3 + 3 credit hour for you guys. And your job is really to find something new or to refine what is already out there in terms of lessening the gap research-wise. So you want to find something new. You want to contribute to the field. Okay. All right. Next. To be completed in two semesters in the form of FYP1 and FYP2. The course code is ENGL 4994 for FYP1 and 4998 for FYP2. Okay, if you're checking your registration. So in semester 1, which will start on the 4th of October, you will be doing FYP1, which is called a research proposal, and it is worth 100 points. What you have for both divisions, literature and linguistics, you have chapter 1, which is the introduction, chapter 2, which is the literature review for linguistic students, literature review and theoretical framework for the literature students. Chapter 3 is methodology for linguistics, or called analysis 1 for literature people, and then you have the references. Okay, next. In semester 2, February or March next year, you have what we call FYP2 or final thesis, also worth 100 points. You have, for this one, the abstract, should be the other way around. Abstract first, and then chapter 1, 2, 3 or FYP1, chapter 4, analysis of findings or analysis 2, and chapter 5, discussion and conclusion, references and the appendices. So all this worth 100 points. Okay, next. So when you add your FYP1, the first 3 chapters, to the FYP2 next June or July, you still have to make some amendments, make some additions or corrections. So that's why it's important for you, once you get back your FYP1, ask your lecturers for feedback. Don't simply get a grade. You must ask, what do I need to improve? What corrections or what amendments do I need to make? Because they still deserve marks. They're going to get marks in the FYP2 as well. Right, now don't fail. Oh my God. What happens if you do? Despite warning this to students last semester, unfortunately, we had a few who failed. So what happens if you fail? You have to repeat the following semester. but not in semester 3. So for instance, whoever failed last semester, they have to wait until October to repeat. Now that's not a big deal for you repeating because you're just doing one work, but your lecturers have to take care of 2 groups of students now, right? For instance, I have FYP1 and FYP2 when I shouldn't be doing FYP2 in semester 1. So that will be a burden on your lecturers. So as much as possible, don't fail. Now you might ask me, how can a person fail? A person can fail if 1, he or she doesn't submit anything at all, right? 2, he or she submits the first draft as the final draft. That means, now if you remember me telling you just now, we don't have classes for FYP, right? You meet your supervisor individually or as a group, or you can do some consultation, but there are no classes. So sometimes there was one lecturer who did not see her student. She submitted at the end of the semester the final work, but it was never read as a draft. So that final work looked like a final draft because you know the lecturer never got to comment or make suggestions. So if the work is poorly done, you fail, right? And I can guarantee you, if it's a first draft submitted as a final draft, you will fail, especially if it's language-wise. Language is one concern, content is another, right? So that's 2. How else could you fail? I think those are the 2 main ways, right? Or if you're given the drafts, you have been, your lecturer has given suggestions, things to improve, but you ignored all those suggestions. The draft the final submission look exactly like the first draft or the second draft. Nothing done to it, you might fail. Okay, all right. Next, so you cannot repeat in the 3rd semester because 3rd semester the lecturers are off doing research and you are off doing internship. You might say, oh, I can do it, internship, it's during the day, I can work at night. No, it's not going to happen. Once you come back from your internship, all you want to do is to sleep. So you are not going to be able to do internship and FYP in the same semester, all right? That will be in semester 1 to repeat. Okay, all right. All right, in terms of supervision, the supervisors will allocate a minimum of 8 sessions per semester. So minimum of 8 meetings. I may say that's an ideal number. Semester 2, I only met the student twice, my students as a group twice. Individually, we consulted on the WhatsApp almost every week, right? So that makes up for it. So you may not get 8. You can have an individual consultation if you want. You can ask from your lecturer. Your lecturer should not deny you that right. Okay, you can have up to 8 supervision individually or as a group. But if you are asked to come in as a class, please attend. Don't disappear. All right. So it can be weekly, it can be fortnightly, depends on you. You can also have social media. Today we cannot have face-to-face physical meetings. So I use a lot of WhatsApp. I use a lot of email. I had Google Meet twice last semester, so that should be okay. All right. Ask your supervisor to meet as many times as you wish, but minimum of 8 times. Okay, next. Discuss with your supervisor the time and day. Right, you decide and make sure you attend. You should allocate roughly 15 to 16 hours a week for your FYP. At the beginning, there will be a lot more because you need to do a lot of reading and researching and record your supervision. Okay, next page, next slide. We have the supervision form. This is not the actual page, but this is roughly what you will have: your name, your date of submission of the whatever drafts, what is which meeting is that, the title, the objectives that you need to achieve, the general comments, specific comments, what you need to do, and so on until you need to meet the next meeting. Now you need to keep this and your supervisor should also have one. Some supervisors are very diligent about keeping the forms, some are not. So you need to step up and keep those forms, because the forms are needed in the course file of the lecturers for auditing purposes. So you make sure you keep one copy and then give your lecturer if he or she needs it, because some of them don't keep these things, and then I get crazy because I'm in charge of auditing files as well. Okay, next slide. All right, what's your job? Your job is to consult with your supervisor regularly and discuss all aspects of the research according to the agreed schedule. So if your lecturer said, okay, by the end of October, I want this, you must provide those things. All right, so be very diligent. Monitor your own progress, document the feedback from your supervisor during the meeting, and proofread the work. Now, this is a comment that I got from almost all of the lecturers. Language. The language is relatively poor, despite the fact that you are English majors. We're talking about writing. I'm not talking about your speaking skills. Your writing skills are still, quite low the expectations of your lecturers. So if the work needs to be proofread, please send it somewhere. I have a few proofreaders. If you need help, obviously you need to pay them. I don't know the charges, but if your lecturer says get this proofread, then you have to send it to be proofread somewhere. Don't ask each other to proofread. I can tell it's your own work, because you guys are not still up to that mark where you can proofread each other's work. I'm talking about basic errors like is, are, was, were, those kind of things. Your verb agreements, very simple language problems. So please make sure. The lecturers are really frustrated because the proofreading bit takes a long time to check. Right? So please have it proofread if need be. Okay, next. You also have to adhere to ethical guidelines. Make sure there's no plagiarism. Please don't get into trouble. When you start doing the data collection, what are your responsibilities to the human participants in terms of getting permission and so on, confidentiality issues and so on. Prepare and submit the research proposal and final research report on time. Don't be late. One person was late last semester and she is now on the verge of failing. So we are not sure whether we should fail her, because she's also doing her internship and many excuses are being made. So don't wait until the last minute and don't be late. Okay. All right. Next. Supervisors must conduct regular meetings. So if, let's say, you are not happy with your supervisor, please go and see me or rather see Dr. Homam, who will be your coordinator. Tell him that you can't get so and so, or tell him that you are not learning anything, or you don't know what you're actually doing. You have that right. Right? I'm happy. If you're scared of Dr. Homam, for instance, come to me first. Talk to me first. Right? I don't mind. And I know which lecturers are what kind of people. I know what I am. I know what other people are like as well. So if you have problems, come and see me or come and see Dr. Homam. Or better yet, talk to your supervisor first. Don't talk to other people outside the kuliah or outside the department. Don't hang our dirty linen or dirty rugs out to other people to see. Come and talk to me first. If all else fails, come and talk to me first. Okay? Then we can try and sort things out. Right? The lecturers are also required to help you in the planning, guide you in the planning, not plan for you. Like what somebody asked just now, we don't plan for you, we don't write for you. So you have to do the planning, you have to implement, you do the research writing. And what we must ensure is that the thesis is of high academic quality and integrity. Once they are submitted as a final submission, they are saved in our library, other people will have access to that. So we don't want the work to be sloppy, full of grammatical or language errors, especially since you are language people. We don't want that to happen, right? Next. We also need to monitor your progress according to the schedule, provide constructive feedback. This is another thing that some of the students came to me. They tell me that, or rather they told me that they didn't get any feedback. Now, what's your job? Talk to your lecturers. Go and talk to your lecturers first. Ask them respectfully, what do I need to do? How can I improve this? If they still don't respond to your satisfaction, then you come and see me or Dr. Homa. Okay, but the lecturers know that's their job. The main job is to provide feedback within reasonable time. I think some of my students were not happy because I'm a very slow reader. Semester 1 I was good, semester 2 not so good because there was a lot of things to be done. So I was quite held back with the reading. All right, so I think I don't mind. I think most of the lecturers don't mind if you keep pushing but respectfully. Can I get my feedback please, and so on. Okay. And our last job, examine and grade both research proposal and final report. Now this is very important. You need to understand that the drafts are not graded. We had a problem with this. One student in semester 1 had her drafts graded. It is also the fault of the lecturers. There were 2 lecturers who unfortunately did not hear me or did not listen carefully to my instruction. I'm the boss right then. And I told them not to grade the drafts, but they did it anyway. And so the student, one student in particular, thought that she got an A because all her drafts are A. But you must remember the final submission, which is all 3 theses for the first FYP, all 3 theses are read again and as one whole thing, not separate chapters. So the whole thing was not to the supervisor's liking. So she got a low B, a B minus. So she was expecting an A based on the drafts. But you see, the drafts marks are not counted. There shouldn't be any marks for drafts anyway. So if you do see marks for your drafts, ask your lecturer, why am I getting this? Because you should not be getting any marks for your drafts. You can get an idea of how good or how poor you're doing based on the lecturer's comments, but there should be no no grades on the drafts. Understand? This is very important. Otherwise, what happened to that girl was she was so unhappy that she got a B instead of the expected A. She refused to work with that supervisor in the second semester. She didn't go and see her. She didn't submit any drafts. She waited until the end to submit the final draft. Thankfully, she is a diligent and a good student. And she got, I don't know what she got, but she passed technically, but not a grade that made her happy, right? Because she was expecting too much from the drafts, which shouldn't be the case, right? So remember, drafts should not be graded, okay? All right, so our last job is to key in your final results. Okay, all right, next. Now, all FYP students and supervisors are required to follow the ethical standard when conducting the research project. So please go to that website for the IREC permission. If you need to get permission, this website will show you how to do it. Okay, next. Okay. What do you do between now and October? 4th of October is your first day of semester. So you are to formulate possible topics. How do you do that? You read different sources, materials from the internet or the library. If you can get into the library, great, go to the library. If not, Google what's on the internet. Think first, okay, what do I want to do? If I were a student, I might say, what do I want to do? Maybe I can observe my surroundings. You are at home, most of you. You can observe, what is my family doing that is unique, language-wise or literature-wise? What are they reading? Or what are they not reading, right? Or you might be able to walk outside and observe people. What is it that people, are doing that is interesting, linguistic-wise, and so on? Talk to people. Maybe you have your grandparents with you. You can talk, okay, I'm talking to my grandparents, but my granddad doesn't understand what I'm saying. What's wrong? Is there such a thing as language change? Okay, that's a sociolinguistic aspect. All right, what are the changes that have happened between my grandparents' time and my time. Okay, that's a situation, that's a problem. Then you go straight and find the readings, the past research on that topic, right? So you try to formulate the topics based on your readings. What is it that interests you? Okay, next. Topics should not be too general. I'll show you how they may be general. Topics should be realistic enough so that you can complete the research within the time frame, 2 semesters. Topics should be interesting to last 2 semesters. There was one question just now, can I change the topic? You haven't even started and you're already planning to change the topic. You must find something that sustains your interest for 2 semesters. Right? They must be language, linguistic, or literature based, as I said earlier, not opinions. I'll show you examples later, or attitudes, okay, or education. Some of you may be interested because you might have had experience teaching. Now, we are not an education department, although that is an area that interests me as well, being a TESOL graduate, but it's not the area to do research on in this department. Okay, next. All right, let's look at some linguistic titles from the last cohort, the students that I had. These are some of my students' topics for linguistics. A comparison between adolescents and adults' use of abbreviations in text messaging. All right, what she did was to look at what adolescents, how adolescents abbreviate and how adults abbreviate in text messaging. And then she interviewed the adults on their perspectives of on abbreviations. Malaysian students' politeness strategies in making requests. Okay, gender, looking at how male and female students make requests and whether there were differences, and there were some. Analysis of quote mixing and quote switching in BTS. BTS, I think you know, is a Korean pop group. So they analyzed the lyrics, looking at the English and the Korean aspect. And she also interviewed Koreans and Malaysian students studying in Korea. Hari Raya advertisement, a tool for racial harmony. That can be a question mark there. Looking at or analyzing Hari Raya advertisements, right? Petronas, TNB, and so on, and looking whether they are using people and language that promote racial harmony or not. And the last one is the one that I was talking about earlier, literature and linguistics. Sustaining Terengganu Malay dialect in growing up in Terengganu by Awang Guni. Right, so this was looking at the dialect aspect in a literature book. Okay, next. Literature titles from Dr. Madiha and Dr. Homa's classes. The representation of female characters in selected contemporary Hollywood vampire films. So this one's looking at films, comparing the characters. Analysis of spiritual messages in Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi's love poetry. So you're not just looking at what you have covered in class. You're basically reaching out to what's out there, looking at other literary materials that you can analyze. Moral Dilemma in Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game. I believe that's a book, all right? So I'm sure you have certain themes or topics or concepts like feminism, Marxism, I don't know what other ism you have that you can use to analyze text. Portrayal of children in historical fiction. Okay? Mysticism and the interplay of good and evil in Coleridge's Christabel and the Pains of Sleep. So you can compare, contrast books. This is where the analysis 1 and analysis 2 would come in using certain theoretical framework. Okay. Any questions about the topics so far? Okay, next slide, Shai. So titles that are not acceptable are the ones that involve opinions, attitudes, historical development. These are things that are not linguistic. In other words, it's not looking at a linguistic behavior or a linguistic item. For instance, you want to analyze attitudes towards Manglish. You are analyzing the attitudes. You're not analyzing Manglish itself. Manglish is Malaysian English, right? The basic type. So you're not looking at the Manglish, you're looking at the attitudes. Malaysians' behavior on social media, that's too general. What kind of behavior are you talking about? If you're talking about a linguistic behavior that they are always demonstrating, for instance, using a lot of curse words or using a lot of abbreviations or a lot of code switching, yeah, then that's okay. But the title has to be changed slightly. Overview of language use. What's the meaning of overview? What are you going to review actually, right? The historical development of English in Malaysia. We have books on that anyway. It's not as if you are going to add, unless you are going to interview older people in their 70s, 80s or 60s about English. Still, you need to work out with your lecturer how that is done. Okay, so no opinions, attitudes, historical development. But historical development may be necessary if it is needed in the background of the study, right? It's a little bit of it. Not educational based. For instance, the most effective way to teach speaking skills. We are not in education development. Evaluation of non-linguistic behavior. No. In terms of literature, if you say, oh, I want to summarize this book, what for? What's the point of that? There's no problem there. We can get the simplified or the abridged version anywhere, right? It's not important. How does that help us? So you shouldn't be doing things like that, all right? Okay, next. So another thing that I want to remind you is that you are not going to change the world. So don't be too ambitious. I know being ambitious is good, no doubt. But here you don't need to, because you only have 2 semesters. You are not going to change the world. I went through the same experience myself when I was doing my PhD. Oh, I want to have this very grand topic that will change the world, that will make Malaysia famous, blah, blah, blah. And I end up changing the topic 6 times. You don't have that much time, right? So find something that is doable. Even if it's a simple thing, but something that you can be proud of as your first baby, your first research. Okay. Now, if you are stuck, this is what I tell people: replicate a study that you like. Now, the word replicate here is the academic word for the lazy word copy. Copy a study that you like. But I'm not saying copy verbatim, not word for word, obviously. Find a study. If you're stuck, nothing works. Oh, 4th October is next week. What am I going to do? Find a study that you like. You can copy the methodology, but you might change it to a Malaysian or Singaporean or Arab sample. All right? You can have, the topic can be changed a little bit here and there, but basically you're following the same study, that study. You can do it. All right? So just replicate. Copy. If people ask you, did you copy something? No, I replicated something. But not the whole thing must be replicated. Change something here and there, right, to make it your own. And usually the thing that you change would be the sample or the methodology. Okay, next. All right, between now and 4th of October, contact your potential supervisor, submit an online or brief proposal, roughly 1 page, introduction, statement of the problem. What is the problem? Research questions, usually 2 or 3. Methodology, how are you going to do that? Fine. The lecturer wants to know what you want to do and if she or she can help you. That's it. All right. Get his or her approval in written form. That is through the email. Next. And then you can register for FYP using the form at the Dell FYP Google Classroom. I give that to Wan and Shahir. So you can go fill up that form and just submit it. But basically for FYP 1 and FYP, registration will be done manually anyway. So if you don't see your name immediately, don't worry. It's only the 4th or the first week of semester that Sister Nosia will be able to put you in one by one. All right, so you will be manually registered under that lecturer's section. Once you have received the lecturer's approval, that lecturer will need to submit to me all 7 names. This semester, the quota is 7 students per lecturer, maybe more, but that will be in October when we see how many students we have. But maximum right now is 7. Right, so once they have 7, they will send me the names. I will send the names to Nosia. Nosia will register you in under that lecturer. All right. Okay, next. At the start of the semester, start working on your FYP. Take note of the supervisor's contact information, email, or if you are given the number, that's fine. Create your group WhatsApp. Set meeting times either as group or individually. Now, when can supervisors be contacted? Please be respectful. Your supervisors have a life too. So better if it's during office hours, all right, 9 to 5. Don't disturb them at night. Don't disturb them weekends. I made that mistake of telling my supervisors, oh, anytime you want to message me. And I got, messages at 2 in the morning as well. So no. This semester, 9 to 5 weekdays. Okay. You need to understand we have classes as well. So your messages may not be answered immediately. And almost every Friday, your lecturers have a meeting or two. Right. So be patient. But if they don't reply to you after 2 or 3 weeks, you know what to do. Get to Dr. Homa or me. Okay. Next. Be diligent about working every week and consulting or meeting your supervisor. Supervisor there. Learn to be independent and resourceful. You're on your own most of the time. Now, obviously, when I say you're on your own, you have each other. You have your friends in your supervisory group. So, share with each other. Exchange ideas. Meet your supervisor as much as you can, but with something to show. Don't simply say, I don't know what to do. Do what? Show us what you cannot do. Tell us what is exactly the problem. We cannot guide you or tell you, oh, you need to do this and that without you telling us first what is the problem. All right. So always come with something to show, a draft or even a paragraph. Okay, next. Okay, so first year project, 100%. Let's see what's in it. Next. All right, so this is 5,000 to 6,000 words, about 17 to 20 pages, excluding title page and references, as well as appendices. Chapter 1, introduction is 30%. Chapter 2 is 30%. Chapter 3 is 30%. References, format and language is 10%. Okay, next. Okay, what's in it? So as I said, literature subtopics may vary. But for the first introduction chapter, we have roughly 5 to 7 pages, background of the study, an idea of what you are going to do. So here you'll be talking about the variables. What is a variable? These are the key concepts in your title. Okay. Statement of the problem. What is the problem? I'll come back to that. Research question, objectives, significance of the study, definition of terms, and chapter summary. Okay, next. So the background of the study is, what is the study all about? Right? There might be some historical bits. There might be some geographical information as well. If you're doing linguistics, you'll be talking about English in general, right? You talk about the big picture and you go down to the focus of your study. What we call the funnel model. You know what a funnel is? Funnel. You know when you put water into a bottle and you don't want to spill it, you use a funnel. Shahir, you know what a funnel is?
Yes, it's like a.
What is it in Malay? I don't remember what.
I also don't know what it is in Malay. But yeah, I basically put like it's like a from large to a small.
Yes. But the idea is the same. Yeah. For the background, the bigger picture, the bigger idea, and then you narrow it down to what you're going to do. That's the background of the study. All right. Statement of the problem. What is the problem that you see or read that requires investigation on your part? What is it that intrigues you? What do you want to know about this? Not to solve the problem, but what is the problem? Because at the end, in your chapter 5, you're not there to provide solutions. We don't want solutions. We want to know what you are studying. What is the problem? What did you find in your reading, observation, or experience that makes this study unique? Okay, next. Research questions. You need 2 or 3 that must match the research objectives. Using WH question, What are the strategies shown by the students in demonstrating positive politeness, for instance? So not questions that will give you an answer yes or no. When you have created the question, if you can answer yes or no, that's a poor question. That's not the question to be included as a research question. So it must be a question that cannot be answered with yes or no. High order versus low questions. You can have the what question and you can also have the why question. Research objectives, why are you doing this? What is your purpose? Must match the research questions. Okay, next. What's the significance of the study? Who will this study benefit? You can have 1 or 2 paragraphs, normally society, stakeholders, parents, the Ministry of Education, teachers, and so on, or the students themselves. Definition of terms, highlight and define the key terms. Usually these are cited from reputable sources. So you must have citations here. I would say minimum 3. If I have only 1, I won't be happy. So, more than 3. Sometimes your lecturers will also tell you what sorts of terms that are needed. Terms are the things that will come up all the time, that you will keep using, right? And then there is a chapter summary. Okay, next. So a sample of this, one of my students did Malaysian students' politeness strategies in making requests, gender differences. So her statement of problem is, although many previous studies suggest that women tend to use more modest and polite terms when speaking in comparison to men, it does not rule out other possibilities because as time passes, changes may be evident. So her problem is that she wants to find out what are these possibilities and what are these changes, right? That's why she is doing this research. Research questions, what are the positive politeness strategies that Malaysian male and female students do in making requests? And what are the negative politeness strategies, right? So she had 2 questions, positive and negative politeness. Simple, direct, easy to find. Okay, next. Research objectives to identify. So as I said, they must match the question to identify the positive politeness, to identify the negative politeness. And her significance, the result of this study may contribute to the society, right? So in general, considering the importance of language and communication in people's lives. Moreover, this study is considered important for individuals, right? So you can have something like that. Just a couple of paragraphs will do. Okay, next. All right, we move on to chapter 2, literature review. Now, this is the longest chapter in your research proposal, about 10 to 12 pages. You have introduction. Subtopics will be based on your variables. For instance, for that student just now, she had a subsection on positive politeness, and then another subsection on negative politeness, and so on, right? Theoretical framework, and then the chapter summary. Okay, what's in it? Next topic and next slide. Okay, so what you do is you are going to evaluate existing scholarly literature on the proposed research problem, the variables, and the theoretical framework. This is one thing that might help you if you have time or you want to be more organized as you are reading all this literature, all these different articles. Make a table where you have the author, the year, who was studied, where are they, for instance, Arab students in Yemen, for instance. Methodology, interview, significant findings, 1, 2, 3. Then similarities and differences with yours, and how is it relevant to your study. The last 2 columns here are very important because when you are doing your chapter 2, it's not just summarizing. You need to connect with your chapter 2, with your study. Go on to the next slide, Shahir. You see, when you are reviewing the relevant literature, you are not just summarizing, but a review that would also link the relevant points and issues to the research questions and objectives. You must link each article or each source with your own study. For instance, if the method is the same, but you expect different or maybe similar results, you must be critical. You must be ready or brave to criticize. You might say, oh, this was an interesting article by Shahir, for instance, okay? Shahir 2010 conducted a study where blah, blah, blah was found with 25 students in Singapore, okay? And then you might say, this is the finding. He found that Singaporean students prefer to use positive politeness than negative politeness, right? So you might add by saying, in my study, I expect the same to happen. But because Shahir used interview rather than survey, the findings may be different. Do you see the link, how I made the link between Shahir's study and my study? So when you get to chapter 5, you will say, oh, definitely, the findings were different between Shahir 2010 and my study because blah, blah, blah. All right. So you're not just summarizing somebody's studies, you are also reviewing and making the critical connection between your study and that other person's study. Okay. When I read my students' first draft, what they did was just to summarize. So and so did this study, in what year, how many students, the methodology, end of story. No, you have to link it to your study. Why did you choose this in the first place? There must be a reason why you chose the topic. It's not just because the variables are the same. How are they the same? What kind of results do you expect to get just because your paper and his paper are the same? All right, so that part is often missing. So you need to do that. Okay, next. Chapter 2, when you use excuse me. When you choose the literature, please make sure you choose current ones, 10 years back. I'm not saying that you cannot use. When I was reading my students' work, there was one that came in 1911. Oh my God, that was what, 90 years ago, before I was born even. All right, you can have an older one because the older literature obviously are established ones with key concepts. But try to get newer, more recent literature, right? Now, the theoretical framework is another key thing is in your chapter 2. That shows the relationship between the literature and the methodology to be used. In other words, in your analysis of data. How are you going to analyze the data? Whose work are you going to base it on? So for instance, oh my God, I can't remember. If somebody had, who did she use? I can't remember. Was it Brown and Levinson, 1987? I think she used that. And she had, what are the key concepts where, maybe not Brown and Levinson might be code switching. But anyway, so let's say somebody's theoretical framework. How is the data going to be analyzed? Right? So you have it in the diagram form. The diagram usually is something that you have to create yourself. And then after that, you need to explain each thing in the diagram. That was one of the weaknesses of my students' work. They had very nice diagrams. And then they explain things, but there's no connection made between the diagram and the explanation. All right, so you have to connect the two. Okay, and then you have the chapter summary. You notice that for every chapter, there is an introduction and there is a chapter summary, except for the first and the last. The first may not have an introduction because the background is already the introduction. And the final chapter, chapter 5, will have a conclusion rather than the chapter summary. Okay, next. Making citations. How do you make citations or quote somebody? All right, you use the present tense. For instance, Aaron Year states, the findings in Ghazali's study show. Okay, you see the word show, the verb refers to the findings, not to Ghazali. That's why there is no S. Okay, grammar lesson there. According to Douglas et al., working class people use. Now this use refer to the people. They also claim refers to Douglas. So there's no S here. So be careful of your verb agreement. Okay, next. So this is present tense. The next example, you can have past tense. If the year is indicated, normally everything is given in the present tense, even though the study was conducted previously. But if you have the year, for instance, in 2017, Wallace conducted, then that would be past tense. The participants, now you're talking about the participants' responses. So that would be in the past tense. So the participants in Park and Kim's survey agreed. So that would be past tense. You could also have mixed tenses when, for instance, in another study, the respondents discussed. Okay, the responses of the respondents will be in the past tense because that's what they said. This demonstrates, this shows, that will be present tense. That reading is vital at a young age. She also maintains, present tense. So if you're talking about the findings, it will be in the present tense. But if you're talking about the responses of the respondents or the participants, that would be in the past tense. Okay, next. Passive form is also okay. Mackay found differences in the way, or Hawking proved that blah, blah, blah. Passive form, fine. Multiple authors. Now, if you are using papers with more than one authors, the first time you mention them, you have to mention all names. For instance, Azima, Hanim, Nosia, and Shiri, 2005, point out the fact that blah, blah, blah. But later, you can use et al. Now, I'm very OCD about this. I'm very particular about this. Where are the dots? Where are the commas, the punctuations? Et al, if the year is in bracket, there is no comma. After all is a dot. But if the whole thing is in a bracket, there must be a comma after all. Dot, all. Dot, comma, then year. The dot is not under et. Now, some papers put et al in italic form because it is Latin. Actually, it should be, but then you may get confused. So be consistent. Either everything is italicized or not at all. Normal font for et al. Okay. Remember also, any word that is not in English must be italicized. So if you have Malay words or Javanese words or Arabic words, they are italicized. Now, if you're giving them as examples of Malay words that are used include blah, 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 blah. All those things must be either italicized or using the single quotation mark, but must be the same throughout. Okay, I'm very grammar Nazi about those things. So if you got me, B1, my 7 lovelies, you got yourself into big trouble here. Okay, next. If the quotation is more than 45 words, very long citation, you can use in-text citation, which is single space. So for instance, Asma Omar in 2005 claims that colon, full colon, and then her words, no quotation mark, just her words in single space indented in the middle. Okay, and the page number at the beginning or at the end, and then full stop. If you're not sure, talk to me or talk to your supervisor. I've always thought that when FYP starts, I would have grammar classes for those of you who need it. But unfortunately, we had the pandemic. I wanted to have classes in the evenings, just very informally talk about grammar and things like that. But because of the pandemic, I couldn't have that. So if we are lucky and we can meet when the semester starts, ask me about that. And then we can have classes at night, in the evenings, early evenings, okay? The people of Hindustan are quote unquote, then you have the name, the year and the page number. If they are verbatim quotations, they must have page number. In his study, Crystal maintains that blah, 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 and then you put the page number. Or you can have the page number after the year. Thompson, 2017, page 15 describes blah, blah, blah. Okay? Make sure everything, the punctuations are all consistent. Where do you put the spaces? Where do you put the dots, the commas, the brackets, and so on? Okay. All right. Next. Citing secondary sources. Now, I know some of you like to cite secondary sources, but really that's a sign of somebody being lazy because you don't want to go to the original, or you can't find, or maybe you can't find the original, but use it sparingly. I would limit it to no more than 3 secondary sources in chapter 2, right? So for instance, you might have, according to Platt in 1999, as cited in Abdul Hakim and Florin 2005. Some people make mistakes of doing this. They say Platt 1999 as cited in Abdul Hakim and Florin in 1990. How can a be cited in a past thing? All right, so you're something wrong. So make sure you are citing things properly and that both citations must be listed in the references. But don't do too many of this. It's very shabby work. Okay, next. Topics and subtopics in chapter 3, you have all this. Introduction, research design, sampling. Research design is what is the design, what approach is that design using? Qualitative or quantitative? This is mainly for linguistic students. Literature people will have to talk about a different research design. You don't have that much of that because you go straight to analysis. Linguistics people, you need a research design. Is it qualitative? Is it quantitative? Is it a mixture of both? Sampling, who are you using? Are you analyzing text or are you using people? Data collection method, what instrument? Interview, whatnot. I think I have some samples later. Analysis, ethical concerns, and chapter summary. Next. Research design, qualitative, quantitative, or mix. You can have anything. Sample, who or what? Data collection method, what are the tools or instrument? Are you going to do the experiment? I don't think you can because we cannot physically meet people. Survey or questionnaire is fine. Interview can also be done through Google Meet or Google or Zoom, whatever. Observation may not happen. Focus group discussion, yes, that can be done. And most people did content or text analysis, especially for the literature people. And then what are the data analysis methods? So this is where the theoretical framework just now came in. Take that framework, how are you going to analyze? So you can use tables and paragraphs to explain. Okay. Ethical concerns will be things like getting their permission to do or not do the study, how are the data going to be kept, the confidentiality method, giving code names and things like that. Okay, next. Okay, in terms of grammar, chapter 1, mostly present tense, unless you're narrating some historical facts. Chapter 2, mostly present, unless narrating finding from past studies. The passive form is okay. Chapter 3, now this is a thing that a lot of people missed. When you do the first FYP1, you do the present tense or the future tense because you haven't conducted the, the study yet. So for instance, you might say, I will be interviewing 10 students. I will be, future tense, all right? But in FYP2, that has to change. I interviewed 10 students because the task has already been completed. That's why I say you have to check what are amendments that you need to make to your FYP1 before you add them to FYP2. Otherwise, you will lose marks because the tenses are wrong. All right, next. Okay, any questions for first FYP1? I've talked for 1.5 hours.
Actually, I have a question, but it's like more like a general thing.
Sure.
Yeah. So I understand that we can use like non-English works, and I also understand that we can use films as a medium to compare or like to conduct our research. I would like to ask if it's possible to use like comics or manga for. Can. Okay.
Sure. You have to look at the language. No, you're not looking at, for instance, the visuals. No. You're looking at the language, not looking at how the cartoonists draw all these things. No. You're You're looking at the kind of language, perhaps the contractions. I know that a lot of comics use a lot of contractions, or onomatopoeia, the sound like boom, splat.
Yeah.
What do those things mean? That's a very interesting area to work on, right? So you can do that because you're looking at the linguistic aspect of it. So that's fine. Either
would it be,
literature or linguistics.
But would it be okay to, for example, for literature, can we like compare like plot points or how they execute the story and things like that? For like we compare like between the West and the East.
I would
along those lines.
accept that, but ask if you're working with somebody from literature, ask that. But I would accept that because I think that would be very interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I think Charmaine has a
Go ahead, Charmaine.
Okay, Assalamualaikum, Doctor. My name is Charmaine. I think it's just an addition on to Zul's question. Like earlier you mentioned, like all FYPs need to have that English bit, right? So let's just say if I were to do something Malaysian, and Malaysian usually we use Malay, like for instance, Hari Raya ads, right? The English part the English part comes in when we look at their translations.
The subtitles.
So let's just say if I were to do on a different language, I have to translate it first. And then analyze it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
But what you could also do, if let's say the advertisements are all in Malay, you could perhaps ask people to what do you call it? To talk about what they understand from that advert. Let's say you ask 5 people. Now they're watching a Malay advert, but you have 5 people. They might have different understanding based on the language. And then you can compare by giving them the English translation. Would their opinions earlier be justified, or could they change their understanding of that advertisement? So it can be done where you're just looking at the translation. But obviously you have to provide a good translation of either the Malay or Arabic or whatever language that you are using, right? So even if you're analyzing translations, that's fine too. There must be some kind of translation.
Doctor, what if there's already how do I say it? Like, for instance, the advertisement itself already has a translation. Like certain companies, so we can just use that. We don't have to make up our own or make it better.
That's even better because you're using that person's or those advertisers' work, not your own work, which sometimes could be biased as well. There's an issue of bias if you're using your own words. That's why if you're using something that you need to translate, you need an iterator, an outsider to do the translation or the rating for you, right? But if it comes from the company, that's fine, no problem. Firdaus, Ahmad Firdaus?
Yes, Doctor. I'm Firdaus. Just now you said that study on attitudes is not acceptable, right, within this course. But I'm actually planning to do on the attitudes on accent variation. So is that still not within our radar, Doctor?
Talk to your supervisor. Is it Dr. Maskana?
I'm actually trying to find
Okay.
I've already contacted 2 lecturers, but I have not received any responses yet.
I always have an argument about this with Dr. Maskana. She's okay with attitude. She doesn't mind that. But when I talk to somebody like Dr. Aisha, who's not linguistic, but the head at that time, she would say, no, this is not linguistic based, right? So you can talk to your lecturer. If your lecturer says, okay, that's fine, then by all means go ahead. But it shouldn't be attitude per se. Only attitude cannot, Firdaus. You know, like for instance, how do IIUM students in the Department of English feel about Manglish? Just a matter of saying, I like it, I hate it. That's it. Where is the analysis of the linguistic item or linguistic component in that, right? If they say, oh, I hate Manglish because Manglish uses a lot of la or a lot of fillers. When you talk about fillers, then you're talking about something linguistic, right? So if they have something like that, then that's fine. But if they simply say, oh, I hate Manglish because Manglish sounds uneducated, or Manglish is spoken by is very ungrammatical, or Manglish is spoken by Singaporean and Indians or Malaysians in a very casual way. No, that's not linguistic. That's very, a very social thing, but it's not linguistic per se, right? But if you can have a little bit of a linguistic component in it, then you're safe. But talk to your lecturer, right? Some of them may feel strongly about it. For instance, I don't really care for that because I want students to look at what is more linguistic, but some lecturers may be okay. So you have a talk with your lecturer. No worries, you won't be shot down.
Okay. Yeah, I'm planning to do on Malay Peninsula students towards Borneo students who, they speak in standard Malay language, but they have that slight different accent because they're from Sabah and Sarawak.
Okay, yeah, accent is a good area. Accent, dialects, that's already sociolinguistics, so you're fine there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But you need to highlight those things. You need to show what those things are. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Anybody else for FYP 1?
Assalamualaikum, Doctor. I have a question.
Okay.
You mentioned about replicating a study. So if we replicate the study, do we have to include in literature review and talk about their study, or should we also mention about how we replicating the study?
Up to you. If you feel you can cite, you can have it in your reference, but you may not necessarily cite it. In other words, you don't need to mention it in your chapters. All right. What was the other thing just now? The second part, apa ni? Shaza?
Should we talk about how we replicate this?
No need. You can just say that if you want to highlight that paper, you can say that, okay, let's say you chose this paper, what's the title, who are the respondents, what are the findings, and then you say, I chose this paper because blah, blah, blah. Right? But you don't have to say that you are replicating. No need. Don't put that word in your paper. No need. Then you can obviously see that you've taken somebody's paper, true and true. You don't have to say that, but you can choose it and include it in your review, right? But obviously there will be different things, methodology, for instance, changed. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right. Anybody else with questions on FYP 1?
Just to confirm, so the works can be used as long as it's translated by like an official source, right? Or like
yeah.
Okay.
So if you choose a Japanese anime or manga, for instance, that's fine. But obviously you need English too, because we don't have experts in other languages. I mean, well, I can translate Javanese, for instance. Dr. Tanya has German language, for instance. There's somebody else who knows French, if I'm not mistaken. Bangladesh, Dr. Mahmoud, obviously. Dr. Homam has Arabic. So these people can help you if you want to do cross-linguistic languages, fine. But if you have a language that nobody in the department understands, obviously you have to have the English translation. Okay? All right. Anybody else? Okay. Let's move on to FYP2 or ENGL 4998, also known as final thesis. This is 100% as well. Next. Next. Okay, this is double the number of words, approximately 30 to 40 pages, excluding title page, references, as well as appendices. Now, do not go beyond 50 pages for the chapters, okay? Don't go crazy. Some lecturers may not read beyond 40 pages, so always ask your lecturers whether you can go beyond 40. Now, you might think now, how do I get to 40? It might be impossible. When you get to chapter 4 for linguistic majors, you'll have so many tables. So actually the tables will take a lot of space in your chapters. So don't worry, you'll get to 40. All of mine did except one, so we're okay. And 2 of them gone beyond 50 anyway, so you're okay. Next. All right, so beginning of semester 2 in either February or March next year, get your feedback from your lecturers for your FYP1. Make arrangements to meet or have online consultations as needed, whether individually or as group, and prepare a separate folder for FYP2 because people tend to confuse things and mix things up. And always put somewhere on your paper, my students especially, put draft 1, for instance, or draft 2, chapter what, draft 1, chapter what, okay, or whatever it is, so that you don't get confused, I don't get confused. Okay, next. What's in the FYP2? There are 2 submissions. The first one is for your grade. This would be at the end of semester 2. You need the cover page, you need the abstract, table of contents, chapters 1 to 5, references, and the appendices. So these are required compulsory items in your final submission. In the final printout, this is not the one where you get grades, but the one that you submit. We had wanted hard copies, but because it's not possible to keep 100 plus copies a year, there's no space, we decided to put everything in a shared Google Drive. So these are all in the final submission, plus the 12 pages that your lecturers will give later. For instance, approval page, declaration page, copyright, so on and so forth, right? This one will come much later, so don't worry about this. Okay, next. So what do you have? Abstract. All right, this is a very short 1 paragraph thing, single space, where you have a mini version of the thesis, 250 to 300 words. You might think this is easy. It's not. It took me 1 week to write my abstract when I did my FYP. This was way back in the 80s, right? I stared at the wall, like, I didn't know what an abstract was supposed to be. It's a short version of your thesis, no more than 300 words. The grammar is in present tense, except when describing methodology and findings. You have the brief introduction, 2 to 3 sentences. Methodology, 1 to 2 sentences. Findings, 2 to 3 sentences. I put them in color because the sample next will tell you what is what. Next. All right, so before that, go back. All right, this is a sample. Okay, this is a sample of the abstract, right? Title is Making Requests Among Transgender People, a Linguistic Analysis. So the red, or the pink rather, is the introduction. Then the yellow is the methodology, the green is the finding. So what you have is, you can see I underlined the verbs. They are in the present tense for the first one. This research attempts to investigate the linguistic patterns of transgender people in making requests. Since these biologically determined men identify themselves as women, there has been much interest in the way they communicate, right? So that's the brief introduction. The next line, 1 line for methodology in yellow. The approach taken was, past tense, recording and analyzing the conversations of 15 respondents based on Bloom-Kalka et al., 1989. Okay. The next green bit is the findings. The findings indicate, you go back to the present tense, that transgender people are more likely to gravitate towards talking like women, especially in using high intonation, empty adjectives, hedges, and fillers. Lakoff was the theoretical framework used because her features of woman speech patterns are used in the study, or were used in the study rather. However, they agreed, they referring to the participants, that they still cannot stop themselves from using swear words. Again, swear word is another feature highlighted by Lakoff, like men when provoked. So you can see brief introduction, methodology, then the findings for the abstract. So that's a very simple abstract that you should have in FYP2, not FYP1, FYP2. Okay, next. Table of contents. All right. Now, you may give me something like this, But when your lecturers start checking your work, there might be some corrections made to the titles or the subtitles. So make sure you check that the pages don't run. Sometimes people don't check this page, then the number don't match. The pages and the titles don't match. So that's a problem. Okay, next. The contents of FYP2 or final thesis, as I've said, all 5 chapters, references, and the appendices. Okay, next. All right, so literature FYPs may have more or less chapters. If they have more, they only have 6 chapters. I think Dr. Nettie asked for 6, but they're very short chapters, don't worry. And the titles are slightly changed. So depending on the nature of the research, there may be variations. So, but don't worry. If you feel that you're not happy with what I have said so far, you don't think I've answered your literature concerns, we can have another workshop for literature students. I think Dr. Homam will be happy to do that, but he can't come today because he has something in the morning. Okay, no worries about that. Okay, next. Literature research generally involves theory. Now, I was told to tell you that in literature, there is a theory which will become the guiding methodology. That's why you don't have a methodology chapter per se, right? It is added to your analysis, right? So don't worry about that. You still need a methodology. It is still a very strong component in the whole thing, because if you don't have the methodology or the approach, how are you going to do the research, right? But consult your supervisors as to where. I believe you added in chapters 3 and 4. Okay, all right, next. All right, so for the topics, 1, 2, 3, same thing. Then you go to chapter 4 where you analyze the findings. So when you finish, when you have submitted your paper in January or December, don't stop, because now you already have chapter 3, but during that 1 month, if you don't have any exams or anything else to do, you can start conducting your data collection. In other words, you can distribute your survey or have your focus group discussion or your interviews even in January. Don't wait until February or semester 2 to start. If your lecturer says, okay, chapter 3 clear, go ahead and do the data collection. So once you have data collection, what I did with my students were, they did the data collection in February and March. By the end of March, they have started writing their chapter 4. Because chapter 4 is the longest of the whole thing, 15 to 20 pages. You have a lot to do, and you need to know how to present your findings. And from the drafts of my student, the first draft, many of them thought that they need to put all the raw data in that chapter. No, the raw data go into the appendices. Your analysis is in the chapter, in chapter 4. Right, so all the tables, the frequencies, the means, the percentages and whatnot, if they're quantitative, the citations of the interviews, some of the interviews, the important bits are in chapter 4. Okay, next. So what's in chapter 4? You have the introduction, a brief one, and various subtopics. So you present the findings with explanation. So you have a table or a graph or a chart, and you talk about how many percentage said this or not said this. Even if it's 0, it can be significant. I'm sure you learned this in your research methodology class, right? So whatever that you need to explain in the table, you have to explain, right? If there is qualitative data, thematical data, for instance, okay, you can put all this under positive politeness. Who said what about positive politeness? So you have some quotations as well. Right? So in this chapter, you present the findings. All right, you analyze the numbers and the words said by the people, by the participants, but you cannot say what your own feelings or opinions about this. At least not for linguistics. Literature, maybe you can do a bit of that, but not for linguistics. You're just stating your analysis or your findings. Okay, and then you have the chapter summary. Okay, next. Topics and subtopics. Okay, chapter 5, about 5 to 7 pages. Some even have 4. I'm okay with that. Introduction, discussion of findings, limitations of study, suggestions for future research. Okay, and then conclusion, not chapter summary, but conclusion. Next. What's in it? Introduction, very brief. Discussion of findings will be a synthesis and justification of the findings based on the research questions. Most people will repeat the research questions, and for each research question, they discuss what they found. And then they link it to the previous studies. Oh, this is exactly what happened to Abdul's paper in 2010. This was what was expected, despite the fact that we had different respondents, we have the same findings. Or I didn't share the same findings with so-and-so because blah, blah, blah. So you need to state your findings, justify why you found it, and then relate it to your to a previous or 1 or 2 studies that you reviewed in chapter 2. All right. So you are basically answering each research question in this chapter. Okay. The limitations of the study may be 1 or 2 paragraphs. This would be the constraints. In the case of my students, mostly said they were constrained by the fact that the pandemic did not allow them to meet the students and therefore they couldn't interview them face to face, or there were internet problems and things like that. Suggestions for future research, whatever can be done to improve the research and the findings. And then lastly, the conclusion. Okay, next. Okay, also you have the format, references or bibliography of the sources that you referred to. So when you start doing, even now, actually, you must record or list down all your references. Don't wait until the end because you would lose things. Whatever you took where, on what page, put it down somewhere first, okay? Primary as well as secondary sources, limit your secondary sources. Style, use APA, MLA or Chicago, check with your supervisor. Appendices would be the survey, the interview questions, the raw data, the glossary, whatever that you use. That's why some of my students' thesis went up to 100 pages because of this last part, right? But you will not be graded on those things. Language, proofreading if needed. Okay, next. Chapter 4, you usually use past tense when reporting the responses. And then chapter 5, you use present tense. Okay, next. Right, the structure of both FYPs, you use 1.5 spacing, Times New Roman, font size 12. Cover page, there is a template which you can ask from your supervisor. The topics are all bold and uppercase. The subtopics are bold and capitalized of keywords. Numbering of tables and figures. I say, Allah, Dr. Maimunah, this is so easy. Yeah, until I get the final work. One of my students jumbled up all the table numbers. It was so difficult to read. So you need to make sure you are numbering them properly, not just on top of the table, but also in the paragraph. Right? Table 3.1 refers to chapter 3 and table number 1. So the next one will be table, Syahir? What is it, next one? After 3.1? Because I can only see your face. You are the victim here. Table 3.1, after that is what? Syahir? Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, I didn't unmute. Yeah, I didn't unmute, sorry. It's the page numbering.
No, the table numbering.
Table?
If it after 3.1 is?
Chapter and order, is it?
Yeah, but what is the next table number S?
Oh, is it 3.2?
Yes. Because some people think 3.1 and then I don't know what they give, or they just put table 1, table 2. No, 3.1, 3.2. When you get to 3.9, after that is?
4.
No.
Eh?
If it's still chapter 3, it's
okay.
3.10.
Oh, okay, okay.
11 until
Right.
3.100. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's still in chapter 3, it must be 3 point something.
It's based on the chapter. Okay.
Yes, so
Right.
chapter is chapter 3. 1 is the order. So table 1 is 3.1. Table 2 is 3.2. Table 3 is 3.3. Okay. If there is a figure in the same chapter, it's figure 3.1. Now you might say, hey, we already have table 3.1. That is table. So the number is the same, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. So if you go to chapter 4, which has the most tables and figures for linguistic students, table 1 until whatever. One of my students had table 4.26. Right? You can have as many. But it must be chapter 4, table 4, point something. Okay. Page numbering is bottom centered for everybody. Not at the tape, not at the top, left, right, whatever. No, everything is bottom centered. Okay, next. Submission of work is the final week of semester. This is tentative. In my case, last semester, I was quite behind in my reading. So even though marks were due on the 22nd of July, I got students to submit 2 weeks before, by the 8th of July. All right, so you may get more time, but don't wait to work on it until the last minute. Okay, so supervisors will evaluate and grade the FYPs accordingly. Drafts will not be graded, same thing as FYP1. No IP in progress grade can be awarded to FYP1. So when in semester 1, once you finish, once you've submitted, you must get a grade, a pass or a fail. I mean A, B, C, D, E, F, lah, the usual one. Is that E? I don't think there's E. D is the failing grade, right? So you must get a grade for FYP1. For FYP2, if you cannot finish it for whatever reason, but it must be a valid reason, you can negotiate with your lecturer. You may be awarded an IP grade, but the IP grade must be awarded by the second week of semester 3. So you don't really have that much time. So try not to ask for an IP grade. All right. So you can get a grade immediately and that's it. End of story. All right. But the IP grade is possible only for FYP2, not for FYP1. Okay. And next. Other things, okay, as I mentioned again, submission of drafts not graded. You must adhere to the deadline set by your supervisor. Work with each other. Now, don't be, what do you call that? Stingy, kedekut ilmu, whatever it is. I used to think being, what do you call that? A very competitive learner myself when I was in college, that I should do things by myself and don't share. No such thing. Because you're all doing different things anyway. What you need to share is ideas on how to improve your work. So share your work, read each other's work. One of you may be better in English or whatnot, and you can see the errors. Like all research work, when you have done it for so many months or so many days, you can't see the errors anymore. So somebody else may see it better for you. So find a buddy to work with, either in the same supervision group or somebody else. In my class, I had 8 students. I pair them up 2-2. And then I asked them to read each other's work. I don't know whether they did, but their work improved so much in the second FYP. So I think that helped. If you help each other up, all right? Read each other's work. You don't have to read the whole thing. Read the part where you don't understand or you're not sure of, and then ask people to give some ideas. Okay, language concerns, and to qualified proofreader. I have a couple of my former assistants. If you need help, they can help you with a small fee. Okay, next. Issues of plagiarism. When you submit your final work, it would be in hard copy or in soft copy form. The lecturers will put them through, turn it in. Should not be more than 25%, otherwise you fail. 25% meaning if you go overboard, you have 26% of similarities with somebody else's work, that is considered as plagiarism. So the lecturer will first ask you to correct the whole thing and then go through, turn it in again. If it's still high, either you lose marks, you fail, or you may have to repeat, right? So be careful. Okay, IP, I've talked about that. If you fail FYP 2, well, same thing. If you fail FYP 1 in semester 1, you do FYP 1 again in semester 2. You pass that, you do your FYP 2 in the next year. If you fail FYP 2, you do FYP 2 again in semester 1. You cannot repeat in semester 3 because, as I said, we are all doing different things then. And you have a shorter time period. So you cannot do it in semester 3. This is a kuliah regulation. So your graduate on time and your internship in semester 3 may be affected. You don't want to graduate late, right? And you've got things organized in your life anyway. Unless you don't have, in this pandemic, it's like everything's on standstill, but that's your thing to think about. So if you don't want to repeat, don't fail. That's it. Do your work as well as you can. Okay, next. Okay, your final thesis may be graded by a different lecturer at DELM, not your supervisor, but this is a May kind of thing. If we don't have time, we just proceed with the same lecture. Last semester, because of that auditing thing that came at the same time, so I couldn't arrange for different lecturers to read different work. Thesis may be presented orally in an FYP seminar. Some lecturers did this. I think Dr. Madiha, Dr. Ruby had their students present to each other. Some of the more interesting work may be published in university or external journals. All right, I have in mind to at least publish 3 of my students' work because they are that good, right? Very interesting. So sometimes the topic may be interesting, but the quality of the work is not so good. I still like it though because the topic is not very common. All right, so who knows, if you are lucky, what does this bring to you? Well, if you are going to pursue a postgraduate study later on, that is a plus. Because published work is always a plus in any university's eyes. All right, so that's a good thing for you to have. Okay, is that the last one? Yeah. On the dot, 6 minutes to the last hour. Okay, so that's it. Can you just scroll to the next page? Okay, the next few pages are lecturers' areas of expertise or interest. So you can look at, Prof. Farida, Dr. Tanya, who else? Dr. Amelia, Dr. Homam, Dr. Madiha, Dr. Aisha, Dr. Madiha's poster is not very clear. That's why I put it out just now. These are linguistic people. Dr. Aisha asked me to tell you that she is interested in young adult literature, but not of the white people. And then she changed her words. Oh, that sounds a bit racist. So she said, but about the experience of people of color. All right. So, things like Twilight, don't. She gets very angry when people mention Twilight books to her. Or what's the other thing? Apa tu? Hunger Games. Oh, no. Even I don't like those 2 things if I were to, review them. So young adult literature of people of color. Okay. All right. For the linguistics people, we have next one. Dr. Maskana, Dr. Nora. Okay, me and Dr. Nadila. Now, as I said, mine is full already, but those are my areas. Dr. Nadila will be on leave, on maternity leave, but she'll be back. Although when she comes back for 2nd semester, technically she won't have any supervision. But should there be anybody who failed, I will just put them under Dr. Nadila. But don't make yourself fail just because you want to work with her. That's not a promise yet. Don't fail, for goodness sake, don't fail. Okay, next 2 would be Dr. Ainul, Dr. Adlina, okay. Dr. Zura, Dr. Afifa is very technical, but she still can work with anybody on linguistics, other forms of linguistics as well. Next, Dr. Ruby, Dr. Aino has a poster. Okay. And I think the last page shows Haji Mazlan and Brother Samsul didn't give me their list, but you can still contact them. The other two people whose quota are already full are Dr. Mahmud and Dr. Neti. All full already. Okay. So don't write to them. If you can, get somebody else. There is a new lecturer coming in. I don't know her name. We don't have the department knows her name, but they haven't given it to me. And I don't know her specialization. So if, let's say, worst comes to worst, you cannot find anybody, you might get a new person. All right. But I don't know who that person is, and I don't know how she works yet. So we don't know. So Dr. Nadila will be out. Dr. Zaharia is retiring, if you don't know that. I think this month is her last month. She has a few more months until November, but she's taking leave. So she's definitely not taking anything anymore. All right. She may come back as a part-timer, but she might take the whole semester off first. So you can say goodbye to Dr. Zaria. I'm sad already because that's another person gone. And therefore I move up to the older person rank or whatever you call it. Ugh. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Yeah. So I'm coordinator until September. Then Dr. Homam will take over. But don't worry, I'm around, not going anywhere. If we are still not on campus, I'm at home, not going anywhere. So anytime you need help, either email me or message me. You can message me anytime. Oh, there I go. Not anytime, but reasonable hour. If I don't reply immediately, I will reply eventually. Okay. All right. That's it for my slides. Q&A.
Yeah, I think we'll just give it like 5 to 10 minutes for Q&A if anyone has any questions.
Shahir, I think I have a couple of mistakes just now. I'll correct them and then give it back to you, the slides.
Okay, sure.
So I do it.
Yeah. If anyone has any questions, you can write it down on the chat. Try and read it out.
Don't be shy. You know me. What's there to be shy about? Just ask me a question. You scared of your grammar? Ish. Final year already.
Doctor, I have a question.
Yes, Izzy.
When will the department release the Google form to be filled?
I given it to one Alia, and I think Alia gave to Shahir. You can share that. Shahir, do you have it already?
Yeah, I think so. I will share it to the group after this session.
Oh, okay. So it's already.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Elite people have it already. Okay. Any other questions?
Doctor?
I'm
Melissa. Yeah. I just want to ask, do we have like a minimum number of respondents when we do our research later?
Depends on your topic. If you are doing interview solely, just interview, you don't need 50 people. 5 is reasonable, but it must be in-depth analysis. If you have a survey, again, depends on your topic. 50 may be sufficient. 20 is also sufficient, but it depends on your topic. The larger, of course, the more, the better it is, because then you can generalize. But that is not your aim at this level, because you're just doing an undergraduate research. So most likely you cannot generalize to the whole population of Selangor or Malaysia, for instance, or Asia. No, that's too ambitious. But you must look at what your topic is and see if it's reasonable. For my students, most of them got 50 and above. The most was 113, I think, through Google, Google form survey. That was it. All right. But even if you have many respondents, but you cannot analyze well, that's not good either. So the number is for you to decide with your supervisor. Okay. Maybe what else? All right.
Any more questions? I think we have like maybe 3 to 5 minutes.
Let me ask you a question. How confident are you about your research skills? Like, do you think you have learned enough from your RM classes to be able to conduct the research on your own?
I think probably I need to refresh some of the things. Yeah, I need to revise some of the things, but I think it should be okay. Yeah.
What you can do is also, once you get into your supervision group, you might ask your supervisor to sort of brush up on those areas that need to be reminded. Okay, because you took the RM class a long time ago, and then you didn't know what kind of research you were going to do then. So if you I tell my students to have at least two instruments, a qualitative and a quantitative. One is okay, but it has to be analyzed in a very in-depth way, right? But qualitative and quantitative combined would be better. Then
it's possible to conduct another session, especially for those who are focused on.
Aisha, can you repeat the question? I can't hear you.
Is it possible for you or Dr. Homam to conduct another session, but focusing on literature?
Yes,
students.
Yes, I will talk to him and ask him to conduct one as soon as possible. Right now, the semester just started, but I don't think he's teaching, so maybe he can have one next week. I'll tell him that you would like one for literature people. That's
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Any more questions?
What would happen if there are not enough? No.
What will happen if there are not enough supervisors?
There will be, don't worry. All lecturers are supposed to take 7 people this semester. Okay, let's say everybody got 7, and suddenly there's one student who has no supervisor yet. We will see who he or she wants and just give it to that person. So that person has 8. Everybody will get one regardless of how many each supervisor gets. We must have 7, but that 7 will be plus when the semester opens. So for now, I have 7 doing FYP 1, and I also have 2 from Arwah Dr. Rosie's class. So I have actually 9 students, which is fine. So that means I have 2 groups. So in October, if let's say a student wants me, then I have to add 8. I have to make it 8 because we are supposed to add 1 more just in case. But I can refuse because I have 2 from FYP 2. All right. Last semester, Prof. Farida, Dr. Madiha, Dr. Neti had 9 students. So this semester, I said, okay, you hold on to 7 first and don't add another one, the 8th, unless there's anybody really desperate to have one. All right. So I try to allocate everybody to 7 first. All right. Usually by semester 1, we are still registering people. What I experienced last semester, we were still adding people until the 2nd week of semester. So don't panic. You will get a lecturer eventually. Hopefully to your liking lah. So that's why don't be late. If you want somebody really bad, go now. I think Dr. Ainul has 3 already. Dr. Maskana has 1. Dr. Ruby has 2. Almost everybody has somebody at least. So you have to be quick. Okay. Any more?
Yeah, I think we have time for one last question.
No? Okay.
No questions? Okay. All right. So I think we can conclude this session. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Maimunah, for the very informative talk. And hopefully the presentation that you have given us can help the students in preparing us in like executing the FYP, like doing the FYP.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you so much.
All the best to everybody. Please work closely with your supervisor. If you have chosen that person, be happy with that choice. If you are not happy, I'm sorry, but that's life. In the real world, sometimes we work with people that we like. Sometimes we have to work with people that we don't like. And nobody's perfect. Your supervisors are human too. I think all of them are. Some of them are less human. But work with each other. Okay, if there are any problems, come and talk to me or anybody that you're comfortable with. All right, all the best. Inshallah, I'll see you. Hopefully, see you on campus in October.
Okay.
If not, be depressed still. Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Okay, we'll just conclude with tasbih kafarah so that.
Okay, I'll stop recording. I'll send it to you, Syahid.
All right.
Do I have your number, Syahid?
Yeah, I think so. I've texted you before on WhatsApp. Yeah, maybe I'll just message you after this.
Send me a message. So
Okay.
I need your email address so I can send the recording as well.
Okay, sure.
All right. Thank you.